everyone. Thanks for coming.
Hello.
We're so excited to be here.
It's very cool.
Can't believe I'm on stage with you.
Yeah.
You're
It's been
such
a
a
while.
badass.
Yeah.
Nice. This is going to be fun. Well, everybody, thanks for coming. I'm very honored to be up here with Marcelo, who's the president and co-founder of Remote. Remote has grown to be a $3 billion startup in a very short period of time. So let's talk more about the secrets behind the growth of the business. You want to share just a little bit about what Remote is and the history of the company?
Sure. So Remote is a global HR platform. Think about it as a HR backend of companies allow you to find, hire, manage, pay people across the world. And oh, that was fast. We started in January 2019 out of Portugal. Then we expanded across the world, and we're now literally covering the world. We're 1,600 people today as a company, and we've been going quite insanely. It's been the past 5 years going through all the craziness that the world has gone through, and of course, because we're in all the countries, that means that we're also exposed to all of this. And so there's always this excitement, I'm going to put it that way, about not just building out your product and your offering, but also your company. Because at some point, those two things will always go hand in hand. But it's often easy to just think about, just the public-facing part of it, like the product, but the company is super exciting to do as well.
Yeah, amazing. Well, one thing I think that is pretty interesting about Remote is just the way that you have built the product. You haven't cut corners. You haven't relied on third parties. You've built the product in a really unique way. Talk more just about the product philosophy behind Remote and what makes you unique compared to other solutions in the market.
So it's about first principles. When we created Remote, I mean, Job and I, my co-founder and I, we're friends for 12, 13 years now. It's kind of a bit too much. But the way we connected back in the day was mostly about the things that we sort of really liked to do. And back when we first met, we met about and we discussed an idea about building like a place where both companies could hire the best people in the world, but actually the people could work for the company that is best suited to what they like. And then, of course, even back like 12 years ago or so, you could think about LinkedIn and all the job boards that you had around the world. And even associated HR platforms. And you think, they mostly suck. Right? They really do. I've yet to think about, to meet anyone that says, well, I'm excited to use X, not X in Twitter, but company.
ADP.
Yeah. And they're not excited. And of course, I know, in HR world and all things, leading people, it's not about being the hero. It's not about, just adopting, the fastest tool or whatever. It's about using something that unlocks the capabilities of your company. And to that point, they mostly sucked. So fast forward a few years, when we started to build Remote, that was while we were searching the first few days, like, what is the soul of this company? What are we going to do that is significantly different? That is going to make a dent in this space. And that was it, building a great product and having an excellent experience. And we knew that, of course, there's always a discussion of build versus buy. And do you do it yourself or you rely on others? And that was our motto. Of course, there are many ways of doing things. Some, of course, will allow you to provide a much better experience and ultimately build a better company in the long term. But to each their own. And to us, it really matters, even now 5 years into this company, which is very little for all intents and purposes, is the same thing that sticks. Like the experience, you can only provide that ultimate experience if you control the whole thing. If you really craft a product that you yourself are excited to use on a daily basis. If you understand like what are the pains, but not just that. I always think about, doctors, when you go there and you're like, oh, it hurts here, it hurts there. And I'm like, and you're like, maybe I have something broken, and they're like, you're talking about your pains. You're not really addressing the fundamental sickness, right? And in this case, I think is very much rooted on the status quo of the different elements that make up for HR across the world. How you handle payroll, how you pay people, how do you manage your contractors, how do you manage the information of your HR systems. And that the funny part is that there's so much status quo entrenched in these areas because these areas are all exist for like hundreds of years. It existed on paper, perhaps, and it's a lot of fun to like break them apart, put them out, and pull them apart, and then rebuild something that not only fix the pain but really addresses the underlying symptoms.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and it's pretty remarkable just to look at how the remote product has evolved over time. You've expanded the platform, you offer so much, and you solve so many different pain points for companies that are building global and distributed teams. And it's no surprise, just given that you're an engineer by background, that you're so deep in the product. Um, and I'm sure just as you guys have scaled to 1,600 employees today, your responsibilities have changed from, just thinking about product all day to thinking about managing an organization and all the other challenges that come with building and scaling an organization. What advice do you have for founders just as their responsibilities change when scaling an organization that's growing as quickly as remote is?
My roles evolved because the needs of the company also evolved. And I'm an engineer by training, and I started as CTO. I had been a tech lead quite a few times before, and to me, it came naturally. And I think as I saw the company evolve, the one thing, especially with founders, comes that you see the simple line between the clutter and the complexity and all that, which enables you to often see the solutions or a path towards a better tomorrow. And that led me to not just focus on tech stuff, but see other crap going around and understand how do you better solve for it. And so that led me to the next role, which was becoming a COO. And that role expanded quite a lot because I went from just engineering to running all things operations within the organizations, which is quite a bit. And then it continued to expand as company grows. You also need to hire people that are experienced, that can do better than yourself. And the best thing that I can do is focus on the next big problem of the company. And then eventually, as I kept going from one to another, I sort of ran out of titles, and I just wanted to be Marcelo at remote. And Yob was like, "No, you need a title." So, what is the most abstract thing that you can think of? I was like, maybe president is a thing. And then honestly, it came as a joke because I'm Portuguese, and so Portugal's president is also Marcelo. And so, yeah, it was a sort of
So
double
official.
joke.
I love
Yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah.
The president on
Yes,
stage with
very
the
much so.
president.
Yes. Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm sure that it's been really special just to see the team grow, and you guys have built a phenomenal team. How do you think about instituting a strong culture in a remote and distributed environment? It's something that became very popular over the last few years. Now the pendulum is swinging back for a lot of organizations, and they're seeing some demands to go back into person. But I'm curious how you think about building a strong remote culture and team.
Yeah. I think about it as in the same way that I always thought about building a team, even in an office. A culture is much more than the space that people occupy to do their job. And you always need that underlying messaging or underlying way of doing things that will support you and be your fail safe in case shit goes sideways. It's about how you communicate. It's about how your words are perceived. It's about how your intent is crosses the different teams and the different paths. And a lot of in in office culture happens just because people are there, and it starts happening and typically derives from the first people there, the way they act, what time they get into the office, what kind of food they eat, what kind of coffee they drink, if they like football or nothing at all, or just talk politics. And that gets entrenched because of locality, but it's not culture, right? It's just, serendipitous scenarios that happen in every day. But culture is much more of that. And I think a lot of what happened is that with this going into fully distributed organizations, or just even partly distributed organizations, a lot of companies realize that they don't really have a formal culture, because the moment that people either start having like multiple offices, or traveling across the world often, or even working from home a few days, they realize that there's a lack of unity between what people do, how they're perceived, and how they communicate. And then it really started to put an emphasis on that. And to us, the biggest learnings is that culture is the one thing in your company that has to be deliberate. It can't happen on itself, because otherwise it's going to be a mess and a mix of problems, of poor communications, poor expectations, and ultimately an amorphous kind of feeling that comes with, you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
You go into a meeting, you don't know if you're going to bump into, head to head with a colleague, or if all of a sudden someone wants to take time off. They don't know how, right? And so how you decide to tackle that is all about deliberate execution of culture.
I totally agree. I think just the idea of being really deliberate and thoughtful about your culture really can set your company apart, and it can help attract and retain talent, which is so critical as you think about building and scaling an organization. How would you define Remote's culture today? How has it changed over time?
So today we're about 1,600 people across the world. Um, I think the plan this year is to get to 2,000 people, or we're getting there fast. And every time I say a number is already outdated. But so to me, the culture of Remote is based a lot on our asynchronous way of working. That's one. Second is about staying true to our values as a company that we set, but also that evolve. And much more so, these values are human values. They are not about, their care, intensity, innovation, excellence, transparency. Um, and they are not about, this kumbaya, we do this because we believe whatever. No, like these are human qualities that you like to see on people that you have to spend a lot of time working with. And what I see about our culture is that it evolved with the people, because also we learned that you can't force culture onto people. And there's a very big difference between cult and culture. And ultimately, as you grow, you start adapting and growing with what people add and join the company and start sharing and exploring. But most of all, allowing every single person to expand upon what that culture is perceived. My perception of our own culture today is that we managed to grow this size in a thoughtful way, in a way that people enjoy, they can enjoy their work, they can share, and can be themselves, which ends up being in a place where actually you can do your best job, in the best of your version of yourself, if you like that, but at the same time, you can actually have fun. Because I think, you spend many hours of your time doing your job. If you can't have fun, what the fuck?
Well, I'm sure people are having fun in an organization led by you. So that definitely comes through in my conversations with the team. Maybe transitioning to fundraising, one thing that I think is pretty remarkable about Remote is that you have raised venture capital. You've been very successful in your fundraising journey, but Remote has stayed very efficient. You've been able to thoughtfully balance top line growth with efficiency. What is the company's philosophy on how to do that? How do you know when to invest more and go faster versus stay efficient and take your time in scaling the business?
It's all about the opportunity, but also fundamentally, the role of a business is to take $1 and to generate more. Within so a company as a whole does that. And then internally, every department can be seen as a variable of that equation. And it has its own weight into how you generate that profit or that revenue. And ultimately, a lot of people think about scaling. Hey, I raised X amount of money. I'm gonna, do the shift, hold, and scale the whole thing as a whole, right?
Up and to the right.
Yeah,
It doesn't work like that.
exactly, right? Because you end up scaling things that you don't need to scale. And then you have to walk backwards and like, what is happening? I'm not really being efficient. I need to raise more because you're not focusing on building an efficient business. And so that exercise of looking across the different areas and thinking, this is doing well. I can keep going as we are. Other areas grow exponentially and some areas sublinearly. And so this is the hard reality of building a business, understanding which areas should grow at which velocity. Because not all, even including sales and growth and all that, it's not always just add more people and grow. No, sometimes your efficiency is not what you want it to be. And that is fine to take a step back and think, okay, so where will I need to be so that it makes sense to put money and get more on the other end? Because also money runs out. And so if you don't do it well, you end up spending quite a lot of money.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and that's something that we always advise companies too. Of, even if you have offers to raise money, it's not worth raising money unless you have a plan for how to deploy that, and if that plan allows you and enables you to go faster and accelerate the business. So I think it's really critical to know where you can invest and when you can go faster. And if you see that path, you can spend money and burn. But if you don't see the payoff, then it's not worth just burning money to burn money, despite it being out there. Marcelo, this has been a blast. Maybe just to end, can you share just a little bit more about your long-term goals for Remote and what we can expect out of the company in the coming years?
Yeah, we're on our path towards becoming, the one global HR platform, which has been very exciting and has been received super well by customers in the market in general. I think the path is always building to us, and that to me is what keeps me excited, taking down status quo and rebuilding this space and, helping everyone do their best job.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. This has been fun.